Welcome to the Strategy Skills Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Safarova, and this episode is sponsored by strategytraining.com. You will be able to get key insights and action items from this upcoming episode at firmsconsulting.com/action. And today we have with us Marcus Fontoura, who is currently in his second tenure as Technical Fellow and Corporate Vice President at Microsoft, where he works as CTO for Azure Core. And he's also the author of Human Agency in the Digital World and A Platform Mindset. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. A pleasure to be here.
So I'm so glad to have you with us today because of your background. And speaking of your background, let's just start there. Maybe very briefly, you could give us an overview of your journey that led you to this very important role you have right now.
So I'm originally from Brazil, so I did most of my studies there, and then I moved to Canada for part of my PhD program, and then I immigrated to the US in '99 for a postdoc in Princeton, and from there I been into several startups. Like I started at IBM Research, and then moved in the Valley, and then Yahoo early days, and then Google, not so early days, but in the beginning of search. So I worked a lot in web search throughout my career. Then I moved to Microsoft to work on Bing, also in the area of search and advertisement. And then within Microsoft, I had a couple of different roles working on the infrastructure for Azure, our cloud service. And then I had never worked for Brazil, so I bounced back to work for a fintech in Brazil for a couple years as a CTO, and then just came back to Microsoft to look into cloud services and as part of the Azure offering. And so I'm CTO for Azure Core, and also looking into infrastructure for our Azure services and AI and integration points of several of our large scale AI offerings as well.
Have you always known that you wanted to be a tech guy?
No, that's a great question. I was more of a math person, growing up. So I love math, and then so I thought I would go to school for math, but then as part of my first year of college, I had to do an introduction to computer science class. So I fell in love with computer science then, and then I switched careers and did computer engineering for undergrad. I really love programming, and then this was even before the internet was it's in the mid 90s. So we had emails, but it was before web search, before the browser got really popular and on. But I really love programming, and then I'm glad I switched, because I really think it's an incredible journey, to be in first .com bubble, then search, and then now cloud computing and AI. See how that unfolded was really fantastic.
Marcus, and if you could speak to yourself then when you went to that first class and you realized, you know what, I want to learn programming. If you, from the future, told yourself what 2025 would look like, how would you react?
Yeah, I think we made tremendous growth that was very hard to predict, right? Because I remember when I saw the first time I saw Mosaic, the first web browser, and then I had a professor who showed me how search worked. I couldn't even grasp what it was doing, because I didn't really understand the concept of all the websites and then that we could search across. So, and seeing how that we were able with technology to democratize a lot of our understanding about communication, about cooperation, how we do research. Like back then, I think like you had to do research. You had to go to a library and manually search for papers and the manuscripts, and now we can do most of that online. So it's incredible to see how information technology became like so prevalent in our lives, right, and so central to our lives, and it's something that I wouldn't have predicted back then.
And given that you have unique experience of witnessing all that innovation, all those changes, pre-internet and search and so on and so forth, where do you think we are going? Let's say in 5 years, 10 years, what do you think most likely the world be like when it comes to AI, automation, technology?
I think we're at a big inflection point now, since like a couple years back, like when we saw the first large language models and ChatGPT. It's to me, like AI is much more of an evolution than a revolution, but like because we can see that like since from the early 2000s we made like tremendous progress in like machine translation, in also like IBM beating Kasparov in chess, then IBM computer playing Jeopardy and being successful in question answering in Jeopardy. So more and more we're seeing, with the amounts of data that we have in the world and the computational resources that we have available to us, we can do more and more with intelligence that we are building. And the large language models is like the last step in this innovation, and it's really not new, right? The transformers are like the fundamental architecture for a large language model, and their papers, the original paper about transformers was like a few years back. Like, so we are like doing this for a few years, right? But like ChatGPT really popularized what we think like AI is, like in terms of like the chatbot interface, and I think it really blew a lot the minds of everybody away, like, because even people working on the initial language models, they couldn't really grasp that it would be good for so many tasks. Right? What really changed is that before AI was developed for a specific task, and now with large language models, the models are not tailored for any specific task to begin with, like, but then they can be adapted to so many tasks. So I think we'll continue seeing that evolution going even beyond what we see today, like with more powerful models and also smaller models that are more target to some piece of knowledge, to some area, right? So like I think radiology is one area that there is a lot of interest for us to make a huge impact, and like lots of aspects of medicine, lots of aspects of customer support, and then so I think we'll see a lot of use of AI. And I think like the question is how would that impact us humans, right? Like that living through that. And then I feel my take is that like it will really amplify our ability to do more and to do more interesting tasks. In a way, like I think the comparison is like when we had like word processors in the beginning, like and then we saw like the first spell correctors that if you type something wrong, it would correct for you, and then we could see grammar correction, and then now with ChatGPT to even write some paragraphs for you or the whole text for you. I think the same will be like in other professions as well. Like, so once you have like the tool to automate some of the more mundane tasks for you, you can focus on the higher level abstractions, right? What do you really want to write, and focus on really like the tasks that require more your human intelligence and what and analytic skills that computers are still not there. And then like I think that's what we're going to see, more and more intelligence from tools automating the more mechanical tasks, and we up-leveling a bit and working on more like the high-level cognitive skills and tasks that only us humans can do.
Marcus, and are you not noticing that people who are using AI a lot, instead of spending more time doing deep thinking, doing tasks that require you to use your mind, they're actually starting to lose some of the critical thinking skills?
Yeah, and that I think it's a little bit concerning. And with any new technology, we will see this, right? Like when we build something new, there will be like uses that are more appropriate for like amplifying like our humanity, and uses that are not so great, right? Like for instance, like if you think of social networks, it's great in the sense that they connect people. It's like we already have like many studies that show that social networks are very helpful for job finding and connections, like through weak ties and things of that nature. But on the other hand, like there is also the negative use of social networks that is being well documented, and mental health impacting teenagers and negative impacts in society. So I think any new technology is very hard when you are developing the new technology for us to predict that it's going to be used. I feel that now, I think the uses in education, for instance, like people using to do their assignments for them and all that, it's like they use that we don't want to happen, right? What we want to happen is that the assignments and the problems that students do to become more complicated, that they need, and even to me, I think the more interesting thing would be like use ChatGPT and analyze this, and then write and then tell me what's wrong about it, and then like assume that the student is already using ChatGPT and ask for a higher level comprehension task, right? Analysis task that only the students can do. And then I think this is really how we're gonna raise the bar. And I think I think like there will be a while for us to really understand how much can we raise the bar. We are seeing a lot with programming now, Chris. Like when like I think a lot of the tasks that junior engineers can do can already be automated, but then instead of like saying like we don't need junior engineers, what we're trying to do is like raise the bar, so ask junior engineers to be able to do more and more complicated tasks, right? So that's I think what we have to do with students, or like any area that we apply AI to.
When it comes to professionals, business professionals, people getting an MBA, people working for major management consulting firms, major other organizations, how scared should people be about being replaced and being irrelevant, having to start from scratch again and figure out how to be useful in the world?
I would only feel scared if you are not able to do anything that is not mechanical, right? Like if your job is like typing in a spreadsheet, something that the computer could do for you, like then I think I would feel scared. But like if you if you have the knowledge to really, and the experience to really add value to the bottom line, right? I wouldn't feel scared, because I think like what we really want to do is like use AI in a way that will amplify your skills. So to make you more productive and really automate the mechanical and boring tasks, right? So one of the things that like one of the examples in my day job is like in Microsoft Azure is to manage a cloud service across the world, we need a lot of internet cables connecting the several data centers across the world. And in the past, we used like network engineers to monitor every time there is one of these cables is cut, because if you have a cable that is cut, then we could lose connectivity to one of the sites. But it's a very tedious task, right? Because we have like more than 400 companies across the world that are the contractors that manage these cable cuts, and then if a cut happens, it needs to be communicated, and then we need to dispatch a service team there. They need to try to fix it, and then we need to engage. We are able to use AI to automate all that and lift that burden from network engineers, and now they can really focus on how improve the quality of the network services, or do something more innovative, think about new technologies. So I think that's a positive use of AI. So we really want to think it. To me, like, I'm thinking it as a great accelerator, right? So it's going to really amplify what you already do well, and then like really give you more time to focus on the tasks that really matter.
Makes a lot of sense. So you recently wrote a book, Human Agency in Digital World. What did you wanted to communicate? What were the key things you wanted to communicate via that book? Especially given that you have very tough role and you have probably no time to sleep, but you found the time to write the book. So it must be something very important for you to share with the world.
Yeah, so Chris, I was really thinking about this, especially my daughters were asking me like the same types of questions that you asked me, like, what is the future? What should we study? Will you have jobs? And I feel that technology is more and more pervasive in our lives, but a lot of the times we feel that we're just bystanders, and technology is really like dictating how our lives should go, right? Like, now we have to watch news through social networks. The way to connect people is like through Facebook or Instagram. The way to watch the news is technology driven. The way to communicate is like through email or like messaging in a cell phone. And I feel that like we have so many dependencies on technology, but most people are just like not so well versed in technology. So I really wanted to try to explain in simple terms how some of these systems operate, so that we can start taking some of the burden from from the technology developers to ourselves, so that we can develop really the agency that we need to really think about what are the systems that we want in our lives, and what are the systems that we don't want in our lives, right? So and then I feel that we should really try to understand it more, so that we can develop this agency. And I think one of the simple examples is social networks, I just said, right? Like, so basically, what are the good uses of social networks, and what are the uses of social networks that probably we as a society could do without it. And then I really wanted to level the playing field, so more and more of the society can be engaged and have these discussions.
For someone who is listening to us right now and they don't have technical background, they built a successful career leading teams, being subject matter expert in their particular field, but not having technical background, and they now feel very scared. They don't show it at home or at work, but they feel scared that they are falling behind. What would be your recommendation on how can someone catch up enough as a leader so that they become AI literate in terms of technological advancements that they need to understand, automation, and how can they start getting enough knowledge so that they can start integrating AI and automation, let's say, within their consulting practice?
I think, Chris, like a lot of the news that we see today, they are very apocalyptic about AI, right? Like for both in both camps, right? So one camp says like AI will take away all our jobs, and the risk of like robots dominating the world and ending the human race. And on the other camp is like, oh, AI is amazing, and you really amplify our jobs. And then like there is tons of books and material that like you see, and op-ed pieces in the newspapers that you read that will take one camp or the other. My approach was more like, let's me just explain what the technology is and what it does, right? And then in the simple layman terms, so that everyone can understand, right? And it's basically a prediction system, right? So that is like really trying to. It's a model that understands language really well, and then it's a prediction system that that is working to with the knowledge of like the many texts that the AI systems read. Like you can think about an AI system like as somebody who read nonstop for like 50,000 years or something like that, and memorized all that knowledge. So of course, like in many tasks, if you read that much and you memorize everything, you have perfect memory or like near perfect memory, right? So when we say that like bigger AI models, right? When you move from ChatGPT 3 to 4, 4 to 5, basically these models have more parameters. So this means that you read a lot more, but also you memorize a lot more. And so, of course, if you read and memorize that much, like you'll be able to do a lot of tasks. And then, but basically that's all you can do, right? So in the book I mentioned that researchers call the AI systems of today like stochastic parrots, because they just can repeat things, and stochastic because they work in this like probabilistic way, right? So we memorize all the stacks, and then based on the probabilities of the words, like we can predict what is the next word that you should say to complete this language. But that's and then I try to go in detail on how this thing really works. But once you understand that that's basically the technology, it's very clear that it cannot either destroy the world or like and dominate humans or cure all the diseases that we were saying. Like so, it's much more in the middle ground, and it's just another tool that we have in our and it's a very powerful tool, and perhaps like the most important tool that we built. Like with if you see the proportion of impact that it might have in a lot of the tasks that we do today, but this is yet another tool that we have that will impact our lives, but it's not like as apocalyptic as people are trying to make it sound like. And then I think the key point is like, what are the key applications that we want to build with this technology? And that's, I think, where our agency can come in and we can have this debate, right? So if somebody says, oh, like Chris, I can give you like a robot that can teach your kids from like kindergarten up to like 12th grade, and they will for sure get into Harvard. Like, is this something you want or not, right? I would prefer to raise the kids myself, even if I'm not as perfect as a robot, because I feel that's like part of being human is like us taking care of our kids and being a part of the education of our kids. On the other hand, like if the robot is doing things like driving the car for you or like doing groceries for you, like then it's really automating parts of your life that you might not consider as essential. So I think the more we familiarize ourselves with technology, I think we can have like a more like precise debate and like how we want to apply technology to our lives.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you so much for writing it. I think that we definitely need more books like that that explain in simple language how technology works, what it does, what it can do, how to extrapolate what it will likely do down the road, let's say in 3 years and so on. On top of that, would you recommend any other books or any other sources of information for someone who is listening now and decides that they want to start catching up?
Yeah, there is a lot of introductory courses on the internet, like YouTube and even Coursera, on like how AI works. One great documentary is AlphaGo. Like that's like you can see this documentary on Netflix that talks about how they built the AI system that beat the world champion in Go. Like and that documentary is like great for understanding some of the key fundamentals. But like I would just like search online and then trying to see all these resources. There is tons of resources online. I would avoid like resources that are trying to be like trying to make predictions on how the technology will be used, and focus on the resources that really explain how the technology works today, right? Like and then really getting your hands dirty on like playing with it, right? So what you can do with ChatGPT, what we can do if you write more complex prompts, and how can you use prompts to really get some of your tasks automated, and then can you really use it to help you code and implement some agents that can help you to do some simple tasks, and then really grow your understanding by doing little things that will really bring it to life, like, because it's not out of reach, right? My point is that none of that is out of reach, right? How, if you really want to understand the math and the complexity of how it works in detail, then there's another level, but to understand it at high level and so that you can understand how it impacts your life is very, very simple. I believe that anyone that has an MBA really can easily learn it. And then I think even it should be a course that you take, right, as part for everyone, even a high school course, because I think more and more it's so pervasive in our lives, right? I was one of the anecdotes I talk about in the book is like, um, if you're just listening to a podcast or to music in your car, how many computer systems do you touch? And then there is like dozens of computer systems you touch just to listen music, and we just take these things for granted. But like really understanding why these things are so interconnected, and then if one of them fail, what is the impact on others, and why sometimes we have these massive outages that we see, like from like the system is not working. All this interplay, I think, is really easy to understand at high level, right? So you'll not really become an expert unless you dedicate a lot of time, but really to understand at the high level, there is lots of resources available that, and I give lots of pointers in the book, but also if you just search online, there is lots of pointers.
Thank you, Marcus. And let's say if we take somebody who runs a boutique consulting firm and it's very small, they just started, maybe they have 5 people working for them, and they already at the point that they have some understanding of how AI could be helpful, automation could be helpful for their business, but they now want to start integrating AI and automation into their business. What would be your recommendations, your advice on what they should be careful with and what they should pay attention to?
I think if you understand how the technology works, like you see that this problem of hallucinations is still present, and really in the current state of the art, like there is no way to go about it, because AI is basically, as I said, is just, if you think about a human that read for like 50,000 years nonstop, it will read all sorts of books, some books that are like written by credible authors and books that are written by non-credible authors, and then you condensate all this knowledge in a series of parameters. But like when you're repeating, like they have no notion of saying like this is credible and this is not credible. So a lot of the times, even when I'm doing my own research, like we need to be super careful, and the more we use it, the more you have techniques to avoid it to hallucinate so much, right? You can ask for it to provide only references with credible sources and so on. Even if you say that, sometimes it creates some reference for you and pretends like it's from a credible source. So like we have to really double check those things. But so that's one major problem. And then the other major problem is like to be careful how we introduce it, because what I've observed is a lot of the times like AI helps more experienced people than less experienced folks, right? Because more experienced folks, they already have knowledge of what they expect, right? So they can just use AI and ask AI, and then once they get some answer, they know what's true, what's not true, and they know how to tweak it to really like get that task done quickly and with precision. More inexperienced employees, I think they might not have that experience because just don't know what to expect, right? It's harder from them to discern what's correct, what's not correct, what's a good approach, what's a bad approach. And then I think if I had a boutique consulting firm, I would spend a lot of time like training my junior employees, like so that they even pairing them with more senior employees so that they can understand how to use AI effectively, but also like raising the bar of the junior employees because we don't want to be in a situation that like we are like creating more inequality, right? Like and then like having the people that are already senior to become more senior and really making it impossible for anybody else to be productive because the junior employees that are not experienced are in a situation that they will never become experienced, right? So I think we should be very careful about that scenario.
Of course. And building on that, do you see there are certain assumptions that leaders are making about AI and automation that should be challenged or reframed?
I think people now are like it's very wild what people think, right? So and people saying like there were like a lot of people saying in the beginning that like AI will take the jobs away from radiologists, and it is very far away from that, in my opinion. I think I think some tasks like call center, like I think are much closer to being automated than some more complex tasks that require like really deep thinking and analysis. So I think I'll be very careful about making any predictions about like displacing humans. I am much more on the camp of like augmenting human capabilities, and uh, and of course there is like some tasks that are very mechanical that will not perhaps need a human to do those tasks anymore, but hopefully these humans are doing something else, right? They are not just doing mechanical tasks. Long time ago, I had like when I was in school, I had a teacher, a professor. I remember this up to this day. He told me, he told the class, right? If you're trying to solve this problem and then at some point you get to an equation that a computer couldn't resolve it for you, you can leave it. You don't need to solve the equation. And I feel that that's the thing, right? Like we want to use the employees and humans to think to the point that that becomes mechanical, and then but we I don't see AI still getting to that point, right? Like what is the building that we need to build? What is what are the cases that we need to litigate? What are the stories the journalist wants to cover? All that really requires like human judgment and intervention, but then once you decide, journalists decide on the story they want to write, then they can use AI for a lot of the research, for writing like an initial draft of the text, for doing a lot of the tasks that would perhaps like take them a lot more time, but now can be easily automated. So I think that's how I'm framing. Some people are much more like um, I guess radical than I am, but I feel that's the better use for it. And then I think that's like the use that really empowers people, as opposed to thinking that it would be able to replace people. I don't think so.
And I also wanted to ask you, so many leaders, of course, struggle with the pace of AI change. Could you maybe help our listeners differentiate between something that is hype versus something that is actually actionable opportunity for the organization?
Yeah, I think that is hard in general, right? Because some of the things, especially now, because it's very easy to build a prototype about something, but there is no meat behind it, and sometimes it's not scalable and so on, right? So I feel a good approach now is for a while has been the idea of like doing more MVPs, right? Like you do a small prototype, but a small prototype that is deployable and you can measure the impact and you can deploy and really validate that you have the idea right and you have the right unit economics for your idea, and that it scales. I am very, very hesitant about like doing things that are not very data driven, and I feel like things that tend to be more hype, like they are just hype, right? We don't have data to back it up. But I think like the things that tend to work well, like are the projects that they start small, we can deploy, we can see the impacts, and we have this feedback loop, right? That like we get the data, we iterate, we make it better, we make improvements, make it better, make improvements, make it better, and gradually really scale it full force. And a lot of the ideas, like uh, they are basically, they have no substance, because like we cannot really think about a way to deploy it to a scale that makes sense, or the cost is too high. And so a way to validate the idea early on and validate that the unit economics is right is like super key for any startup, right? For me, if I'm doing due diligence in startups, like I want to get to what is the unit economics? How is it going to scale? Do you have the structure to deploy? How many resources does it consume, and does it pay itself, like with the ability that we have to scale it? And that's a simple economical analysis, but like to get to the basics so that we can get that analysis is key for me.
Marcus, and I also wanted to ask you, for leaders listening to us right now who want to integrate AI and automation, let's say within a consulting practice, but are very concerned about sensitive client data going into LLMs, what would you tell them?
So this if these LLMs, they are pre-trained, right? So like I think when you try to understand how these things work, the P in ChatGPT means pre-trained, means that the LLM is already trained. So like, and so normally when you use an LLM, your data it will not flow back to the base model that was already pre-trained. Like it will be localized to your organization, and the model, the LLM, is just trained over public data and data that is available in data sets that the model owners have access to, but not your data, right? So basically, you can think that LLM is being your model is being trained in two steps, right? One is like the LLM that is basically global knowledge about how language works. So it read for 50,000 years all the texts available in the internet about English and all that, but it didn't read your organizational documents that are proprietary to your organization. So then when you do the training for your documents, it will use all the LLM knowledge as a basis, and then you're training on top of that, but just providing the extra knowledge, right? What is your company about? What are the operational procedures in your company? How you do business? Like, what is your business plan? What are like the HR documents, the legal documents, the rules that you have to abide to in your company? Those things will never flow back into the LLMs. So this risk actually doesn't exist. And actually training these LLMs is very, very expensive, takes many months, and it's not done over proprietary data of like any particular company. And you see like lots of use cases of like that some newspapers, for instance, are suing like some of the model owners, like saying like this we believe that this version of the model was trained over proprietary data, and if that's the case, then I think they have to retrain the model. But like for the clients of like these models, like the data will never flow back. And by the way, the only thing that will flow back to the model is like when you say like this result was good or bad and all that, like you're clicking thumbs up or thumb down, that will go back as a feedback loop so that they can adjust, but your data will not flow back.
Thank you, Marcus. I want to wrap up with one or two of my favorite questions. The first one is, over your entire incredible career so far, what were 2, 3 aha moments, realizations that you feel comfortable sharing that really changed the way you look at life or the way you look at business?
Yeah, I think like there were like many moments that I think I learned a lot in my career. Like, and normally those are like situations that you're put into a lot of stress, or like that you had to do something extraordinary. But one of the examples that I always tell is like from the beginning of my career. Um, we are trying to build a system in IBM still. That was my first job, and management really didn't believe that the approach that we had, like me and this other junior engineer that working on the problem, was right. And then they wanted us not to work on the problem, but somehow we continue and we proceeded, and that turned out to be a very successful project. So that so then I think like what was um, important for me is that happened early on in my career, that it gave me the confidence to really trust my instincts. And I feel a lot of people ask me like what do I need to do to be more successful and to progress in my career. And for me, like this idea of taking risks, but taking mitigated risks, I think always come to mind. And something that I was able to develop early on, I think like this idea of trusting your technical judgment, but being able to um, have a good intuition on when it's worthwhile to invest in this project. And even though it might be outside forces telling you not to, or might be very risky, but if you have an instinct that it can be very high reward and that you can solve it, I think it's like these moments of like these mitigated bets that really can pay off and really boost your career. And at least for me, it happened a couple of times. And it boils down to the idea of like good technical judgment, right? So like I think you have to have like good technical judgment to discuss, to really trust when to risk it. And to me it's sad, because I see a lot of very smart people that they work in projects that are really projects that are probably not the best fit for their skills, or that they are just comfortable in this project and not really pushing the boundaries. And I feel that really, to have a successful career, you should strive to really um, invest in projects that really can add value based on your skills, and then really push the boundary and not be afraid to fail.
Definitely. And if you could instill one belief in every listener's heart, what would you pick?
I think the most important thing to me these days is that like we can influence technology. Like technology shouldn't influence us. We should influence like what we want to see in our society, and really take accountability, like over in the same way that we can vote and influence what the government does, or try to influence what the government does for us. We also should think that algorithms are also institutions, and we should like feel empowered to try to influence those institutions to build like a better world for us.
Definitely. Marcus, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our discussion. Where can our listeners learn about you, buy your books, anything you want to share?
Chris, like, thank you so much for interviewing me. This was a great conversation. I have my website, fontoura.org, that has my last name.org. There is a lot of information about me, the books. I am also very active on LinkedIn. Is the only social media that I am part of. But I try to post regularly there, and then like feel free to connect and follow, and the books are available anywhere the books are sold. Just search for my name, and then I would love your feedback in any of those.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Really enjoyed our discussion.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for your time. And very happy to be here.
Our guest today again was Marcus Fontoura, who is currently in his second tenure as Technical Fellow and Corporate Vice President at Microsoft, where he works as CTO for Azure Core. He's also the author of Human Agency in a Digital World and A Platform Mindset. And you can get key action items and insights from this episode at firmsconsulting.com/action. You can also get access to episode 1 of How to Build a Consulting Practice at firmsconsulting.com/build. You can download the free overall approach to well-managed strategy studies at firmsconsulting.com/overall approach. You can also get McKinsey and BCG winning resume example, which is a resume that led to offers from both of those firms. Great example to take a look at if you're currently looking to change jobs, looking for a new role at any level of seniority. You can get it at firmsconsulting.com/resume PDF. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to connect with you all next time.